Hello.
Hey, we are live, question mark,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, we're always live usually, or sometimes not. I think we've only had one
Yeah,
like mishap where I didn't go live correctly, and then we just broadcast
right.
ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, but it was we're never consistent. I think that's so.
Yeah.
Our time is kind of we have a range where we actually go live.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and I guess for folks to know, I'm a little sick, and you have indeterminate power and internet.
Correct. Yes, I've
So
been having some brownout issues this week, so there's a chance that we may just disappear.
it's gonna be a
But that's
hell
how
of
we
an
do it here.
episode. Yeah, all right. But yeah, so
Yeah.
we've been doing this thing where we've been talking about build in public, and we're just going to kick off with that from the beginning or from the start of the show, and kind of do this through the end of September at least, if not longer. We've been talking about stuff we're building anyway. I think it's just kind of more fun, I guess, to formalize it. So let me see if I can do this. Hopefully, folks, for folks listening, there is a DigiCity simulator on screen, so you can watch on YouTube, or there's a recording on Twitch. But I was just going to go through a little bit of what's happened with DigiCity in the last week or so. I still can't zoom on the simulator, so that's fun. But a bunch of new features have been added for folks who are playing along at home. I will have a new build probably tonight for this. And so I guess maybe just to kind of bring it back to beginning, there's now scenarios. So I don't remember if we talked about these last week or not, but
No, you did show last week a little bit of the basics, right? So for those who
yeah,
are just tuning in now, last week you were sort of demoing this a little bit and showing basically the basic functionality, right? And we
yeah,
we're
I
talking
think
about expansions and stuff like that.
yeah. So I think that is now called open build. And so the idea with open build is this is going to be free to play. Test City started up, and it's just, build wherever you want, kind of build whatever you want. And then there's now scenarios, and it's probably a bad name. I'll probably end up changing it. But the idea here is that you start with an anchor building to kind of anchor your economy. So either a port, a university, or a medical building. And it's a little hard to see the selectors on the simulator, but on the app they look fine. And so that's about what you would expect. And so when you start a new city in scenario mode, you place your anchor object, and then there's different challenges associated with that. So for example, the port needs to have freight rail and commercial enterprise and people to work there. The university needs a lot of population to start
Upkeep
with, and then you need to have high land values in your city to attract talent, kind of thing. And then medical is basically a lot of population. I don't know if I want to give away like the whole rules or not for that, but I'll probably
I'm
do.
kind of curious. Did you come up with the three buckets here?
Yeah, so those are the historical economic drivers for cities. There's variations of this.
Yep,
I
yep.
mean, mining, I guess,
Yeah.
would be up there, like resource extraction, but
Sure. Yeah.
maybe we'll go down that route too. But right now, it's focused in building. So yeah, you can select one of these. You start with a blank map, you place your building, and then I have a test city here just to kind of be able to. Oh, it's shoot. Okay, well, I guess I didn't save. So this is my anchor building. And some other new things we've added. We have taxes now. So you can adjust your revenue, the economics. They were always kind of there, but they weren't accessible. So now there's a little bit of economics you can kind of adjust, which becomes more important depending on what you do. And then there's a lot more budgetary stuff involved here, but like it just has like a basic kind of P&L right now. And as you see, like the anchor gives you a certain amount, but there's also expenses associated with that. So we're losing, $20 a month. Some other cool things. So we got a road, everybody's familiar with roads. We had roads last time. I'm just going to quick build some stuff here. We also have freight rail. And so not so much for the hospital, but for commercial, they can use that for transit. So like you would, so this, I should maybe stop. The scenarios start in 1900 and are spaced out between 1900 to 1930, 1930 to 1970, 1970 to 2010, and then onward. So those are kind of like the three eras of modern quote unquote city development in the industrial age. And so in the beginning, you have streetcar, you have freight rail, and you have roads. And the challenge becomes at the end of the rail era, do you rip it all out and build roads to get more capacity? Or do you build kind of a different kind of city? And then you can imagine it like we did in America, where we ripped out all the roads and then or all the rail. And then we decided, oh, shoot, we probably should have kept trains because they're very efficient and better mass transit. So I kind of wanted to play with that idea a little bit. And the cool thing with the streetcar too is the streetcar actually can run on road or by itself, and there's a capacity constraint. So you can have more capacity if it's dedicated by itself, and you get less capacity if it's on a street. So like the realism is kind of there. I'm just, I think everybody's kind of familiar with the industrial kind of stuff. There's a couple different options for power plants now too. They've improved all that kind of stuff a little bit. Everything still needs power and water, just like in real life. The rules are a little bit different for that though, because some of the tiles, like industrial, will do tile improvements. And so it's a little bit of a different than other city builders, I guess, where you have to like manage the build of everything. And so
it automatically evolves kind of deal.
They will, yeah, sometimes, but not always. So sometimes you'll have to come in as a city and intervene, and sometimes you won't.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the gameplay right now is a little bit broken, which is what I'm fixing. This is like a dev snapshot. So, but the idea is that once you hit a certain point, and you can kind of see there's some check marks up here, you get challenged with expansion of your anchor. And so the anchor building kind of gets your economy started. And then it's like, oh no, the clinic is growing, or we need more capacity for medical. What do we do now? Which is a very real life kind of problem. And so you can expand in place and like demo the area around it. You can add a satellite campus, which has its own challenges for logistics and whatnot, or you can decline and probably lose the game.
Oh yeah. So what? How is it? Is there a game over? How does game over happen? Like you can just go into indefinitely, right? Sort of.
Yeah.
Like
so right now,
you're simulating what we have now.
Yeah. So right now, the primary driver is basically maintain profitability, or like not debt. There isn't a debt mechanic yet. I'm working on some of that with more of the economic play. But yeah, and so right now with the scenarios, there's only 1900 and 1930. And so at the end of 1930, you either win that like era or you lose, and then you just keep building. So the game doesn't like
end. Okay.
And I'll probably give folks an option to like restart versus like continue building. Cause like, the scenario is kind of fun. It gives you a different dimension than just kind of free build, and some additional challenges baking into that. That's kind of the whole point. So it's kind of like a mini game, I guess.
Yeah. Right.
And so, yeah, so then that's right now, that's about it. There's more stuff kind of coming here and there, but that's the idea. One thing with the test flight build is there's now a unlock everything for testing. So if you are playing along on test flight, you don't have to purchase save. You don't have to purchase all the other features and stuff. You just click that little toggle and you get everything for free.
Nice.
Yeah. It's a little hack I developed.
we call it beta testing.
Well, and with Apple's simulator ecosystem, you can't sell people stuff in the test flight, and like sometimes it'll work to unlock, sometimes it won't. And it's like hard for people to test stuff. So it's like, if you want to play around and try it out, go for it. If you want to keep it forever and never pay, I guess, I don't know. kind of shitty thing to do, but
yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, the 1900 era is kind of done. The next era will start probably next week. I'm going to be out of town this weekend, so I don't know how much I'll actually get done. And then the idea is to keep building it out. And then I have a lot of really fun ideas for like the 2010s and beyond, because that's kind of like the contemporary era.
Mhm.
And so that's where I think it'll be really get to be fun with like one thing a lot of people have brought up to me is like data centers, and like I actually am going to integrate that into the gameplay.
Yeah. Interesting. Can you start in any era, or do you have to start from the 1900s? And then
right now you have to start in 1900s. Once they're all built, I'd probably have a fast forward. To kind of just pick your, if you've played like Civilization or something like that, they let you kind of like do that. So yeah, there's a lot of that kind of mechanics. And then as I build like different complexities, all of that will go in there. So like a lot of city builders have some kind of like a disaster mode or something that like you'll get
events that'll happen, right?
Yeah. Right. So all that will get built, in time. I'm trying to get the core mechanics of the game down still with the core economy, because like adding variability to that's just hard. And so getting it locked down, kind of understanding, and then because it's all math in the back end, right? Of like what actually like what happens.
It's all random, right? It's all probability. Yeah,
basically.
Right.
So that's the game. Like I said, it's a pretty simple city builder, adding dimensions. So folks have ideas. We have a Discord now. I should have probably opened with that, but feel free to put them in there, or if you want to join the test flight, you can submit feedback through there.
So I'm not too familiar with that whole test flight process. Do you have a link that they need to click to get an invite? Or
there's no website for it yet, which I don't know if I'm going to do or not. I'll probably put it on the company website, I guess, but the link is in the video, and then you can click on it. And then Apple Test Flight is an app that you download that then lets you download the test app.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
So I guess a little bit of context.
Or if you have a Mac with an M1 or higher, you can run it on there too, but it's not iPhone compatible at the moment, although it probably will be.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I imagine. Why is that? Is it a little bit hard on the small screen to sort of like figure out where you're dropping or tiles?
It's a UI problem. It just added complexity, and the point of the game was for the Shipaton competition we've talked about in the past too. So part of it is because there's only 2 months, you got to pick stuff. Like we talk about trade-offs all the time. This is a great example of like, I got the Mac stuff for free for the most part. Like you have to do a little bit to support in the compatibility layer that Apple has, but it's pretty like one-to-one with the iPad, because most of the iPads have the same chip as the Mac anyway. And then iPhone, hardware-wise, is fine. It's just that the UI gets a little bit more challenging and stuff does not work as you would expect. And so I'll probably port it. It's not going to be too challenging. It's just, again, like once you get the core base play and that kind of stuff baked, it's a lot easier to kind of do this stuff going forward too. And so I'm trying to think of like a good advice to give somebody. I don't know how you know that without knowing that, but I guess I just said multi-device support is always difficult, no matter what you're doing and in no matter what context. It always just adds complexity.
Right. Yeah. And the idea is you choose one platform to start with, make sure it works on that, and say that's the official supported one. You slowly branch out. It's especially harder in the Android ecosystem because you have so many different phones, which have different phone screen sizes, which also have different processors. So you have to worry about performance. And typically Android is a nightmare to develop. Well, with a nightmare it's both, but because it's open to develop for, whereas you have to buy a developer account.
Last time I developed in it, their ecosystem was pretty terrible in terms of like Apple's device support is really good in that each generation is pretty locked, and like they lock screen size to like and resolution specifically. And so they built a bunch of universal scaling stuff that you can leverage. And so
Yeah.
it's all built into whereas Android was not there when I was doing it last. I believe they're better now with like auto scaling and whatnot. But like having like art is a great example. Like if Apple didn't have their UI device scaling stuff that they've built, I would have to do art for 80 different screen sizes because otherwise it looks too big or too small, like the actual buildings would. Whereas with the UI frameworks, I might still have to do that with the phone, just like we'll see, but like it should hopefully just scale.
Yeah. Android is better about that. I remember back in the day, you had to provide different breakpoints, or even back in web days, where you had these breakpoints of what screen sizes you would support and what it would look like layout wise, and then submit different assets for
and
different
then you could do like the cheap kind of like build for 1080p and downscale kind of idea, and it was
but then yeah, then you get down to smaller things, you have these blobs of colors that your 1080p high definition artwork was scaled down to.
So I don't know, it's kind of a fun challenge. I have another app I'm working on, I'm not quite ready to talk about yet. I've been AIing in the background. And it's interesting because I think like it's kind of a good segue to the other topic we're going to discuss. But what I found right now is that you can build AI stuff very easily if it's well known or well understood, or like roughly well understood and well known. Like, well, I don't know, I'll just explain the point and then I'll talk more. Whereas if you're on the edge of something or you're doing something novel, AI can help and it can sometimes do well, but I'm finding it's a little bit more frustrating and a little bit more work to use to kind of push stuff forward. And I've hit a limit now with one of the models I'm using that it can't even execute because it doesn't have like a frame of reference for what I'm doing. And this is the project. Because I don't know where it would get that reference, right? Like there's definitely pieces of technology that it can draw from, but I think when I kind of see the formula in my head of like the math that could be going on, I'm like, yeah, it's just all fucking variables and scripts and everything else. And it's like, no wonder I'm getting like total trash.
Yeah, I mean, this is the idea behind AI can't really, or I should rephrase that. Generative AI, as we know it, can't really invent anything new because it's trained on past historical data, right? So when you're on that edge of needing to build something that there's no easy analogy for, or struggles with what you mean by it, and I'll try and do things that don't quite fit the mold. So we talked about this offline a lot, but okay, so you're pushing up that boundary.
Yeah, and I've hit kind of a new level, I guess, where it's so far beyond what it can kind of understand and grasp that it doesn't like it can't even execute. I can't even tell it, do this thing. I was arguing with it for, I don't know, probably 10 minutes and I finally just said, look, like I can do this myself faster. You're making it too hard. Oh yeah, totally right. And then it did for another 10 minutes and then it was still like,
and then it got stuck again. Right.
And it was interesting because it wasn't spinning and it wasn't oscillating, but it was baking in so many different assumptions that weren't there because the things that it's like, if you've worked with derivatives, it was like I was giving it derivatives of variables and it wasn't able to like parse it. If that makes sense. And I was just kind of
like it couldn't figure out.
Yeah. And it's like, that's hard stuff. Like humans have a hard time with that too, but it's like the solutions in quotes, I guess, that it was coming up with were, not obviously wrong, but also not good. And then it was compounding those, right? And so like an example was, I'm trying to take information that is known and extrapolate different variables from the known information. So you picking out pieces of the known information, making those variables, and then using those variables for other things. Right? Algebra, you could say. Well, maybe calculus, but algebra. And it just can't. keep the train of thought, which is really strange because it's been with me the whole time building this thing, right? Like it's done a lot of the work. And so I finally got, I was just like, look, I need, and so what I'm doing is I'm building a model eval for stuff. A lot of this stuff will make sense when I actually tell people what this thing is, but
hopefully.
Yeah, I think so. The model eval though is really interesting because like evals can be hard depending on what you're trying to do. But I'm like, I just need these pieces of information so that I can build an eval, right? Pretty straightforward. Like we know the variables, we know the models we're going to use. So write me up a quick Python script or whatever to like take data from bucket A, run it to the models, get the results, and then compare that to what we have today. Pretty simple, right? A pretty simple eval framework. 25 minutes, it just couldn't fucking do it. And then because it was getting tripped up on, oh, you need this set of variables, but they're variables, and I'm not quite sure how to reconcile that with the test variables because I gave it some test parameters that, you know, what am I trying to test and how am I trying to test? And so then I was like, okay, well, do this exact thing then. And normally that works, right? You're like implement in this specific way and it'll like kind of get it. But it like, I'd say it got 80% of the way, but it kept assuming as it was trying to generate the code to build the eval, it kept assuming the wrong things in enough, it kept assuming the wrong things consistently that it was producing just like crazy stuff. It was really, really
weird. Yeah, so this is deeper than we probably really wanted to go in on the cast, but I do wonder if instead here what you might want to try something like rather than going through the whole process of the eval, I think the eval might work, but you're basically trying to get it to be consistent with what getting it up to speed, right? Because from what I understand, part of this problem is anytime you spin up the agent, it's rebuilding the context, right? These LLMs are stateless, so they don't know exactly where they are. And in that process of rebuilding the context, it makes hallucinations or it goes down these rabbit holes, and then that kind of basically poisons what it's trying to get back to when it's trying to do something new, right? So in these scenarios, I wonder if like a slight nudging of like some memory or managing that in some way to get a new context up to with the right rails in place, as opposed to building the eval for, because the eval will get you to the same point in theory, right? It's like you have the model getting to the point of where you need it to go.
And it was interesting because then I told it like I'm like, this isn't hard. Like I told you what to do it, and still couldn't. So I ended up just writing it myself. Fine. But I just thought it was really, really interesting that it was like totally tripped up on, because I was like, just pull me the information that I have today, right? Because I've already processed the information in some production, and I wanted to compare some other models against that, right? Pretty simple multi-model eval. And it couldn't even pull the information from production. It was so like tripped up. It was really, really weird. So I don't know. That's just kind of an interesting story there, but I think that kind of pushes into, I don't even know how to open that topic.
Yeah, I guess the idea we had in mind to talk about was this idea of like how individuals work with AI, right? And basically, how do you build this DigiCity in such a short amount of time, right? How do you end up working with it to get to that point of being able to build a effectively full functioning product in the span of a month, or a game, which is probably arguably harder to do. And
it is a month, right? Way fucking hard to do. Anyone who wants to go create a game, like, don't not do it. But like the amount of weird shit that happens is like by far. I think we talked about this last time. I've created a game once. It was very simple and it was minimal. It's just really, really, really weird, the amount. And I'm not using a game engine, which might be part of it. I'm like kind of building my own, so to speak.
For some of the situations, you don't need like a full-on game engine, right? Depending on the kind of game you're
making. And I mean, it gets a 2D game to, 3D,
2.5D.
Like,
2.5D isometric.
Yeah, I don't need like Unreal or anything. But yeah, it's amazingly challenging, and the logic that you think would be easy is like not. I mean, the logic is easy. It's just implementing it, and then all of the different variability of how people might do stuff. Yeah. I built a lot of software in my life, and this is one of the more challenging things.
Yeah.
I think it's
Games
also
are fun to program.
Yeah, and I think it's also because it's like really obvious. Like the thing that I was just talking about is like really difficult, but like there isn't necessarily right answers you're working with. So it's challenging in that way that it's like trying to get it right is really difficult because there is no like right answer. Whereas with a game,
Okay.
you lay a road and it doesn't connect to the other chunk of road. It's really fucking obvious that it doesn't work. And it's even more obvious when cars start to run on the road, you know, and they like just run off the road because you didn't tell the game engine that road ends means cars explode or whatever your mechanic is, right?
Yeah.
And it's just bugs in software, right? But it's just kind of an interesting way. But yeah, the creativity in software thing, there's been I think I'll just give the breakdown. So like there's a predominant software developer
I'm sure there are many.
started to build his own Linux distribution. And well, it's funny that there's a whole
down maybe.
I know, right? Yeah. So DHH, for those of you who don't know, is the guy behind Ruby on Rails and works at Basecamp,
which is a programming. Yeah, it's a programming language, and does a lot of pretty cool things. Honestly,
he's got very strong opinions about stuff, and I would say in the last few years / months, he's gotten caught in the political binary of America, and that you're either for or against him. And I'm not interested in that conversation. Yeah. I mean, it's just how America is now, unfortunately. It's being able to separate the person from the idea is gone as far as I can tell. And this is a great example, I think. And he says some stuff I don't agree with, right? But I can't tell you one person in the world that says everything that I agree with, right? Like there's always some kind of disagreement. That's fine. The problem I'm having is in the political environment. It's no longer acceptable to say, I just disagree with that. It's like, now you're on his side unless you like denounce him or something. And it's like, that's just stupid. It's also very like small-minded and not creative. But anyway, so he's gotten a lot of political flack, and he said he's gotten out of software a little bit too into like public policy land, which always gets you in trouble. Just don't, I guess, is what I would recommend. Especially anything nuanced, like people just can't. But anyway, so he created a Linux distribution, Omachi, and has been pushing it as kind of an AI forward thing. He just went on Lex Friedman's podcast. Lex Friedman is a intellectual AI scientist, worked at MIT, does stuff with people and talks to people about things. It went for like 5 some odd.
He's a podcaster. He's a long form podcast. I would say. Yeah.
I'm trying to give everybody like some background on this, and David's been very prominent on X. A lot of people have opinions on X, and like what I want to challenge people is to keep listening, because the problem I find with even talking to some really close friends and colleagues about this is like you start saying the keywords like X or even DHH and they just shut down completely. And I'm like, that we got to get out of that. Like, I don't want to, I guess the idea of platforming people with dangerous opinions or whatever. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know if I really care. Because I'm still in this old mindset of better ideas should beat out worse ideas. And the only way you do that is if you have free debate and you get the ideas out there and you're like, no, you're wrong. And here's why. And here's the better idea. But that's hard, and people can't do hard stuff. And so I would challenge folks to stay with us. And so he's been talking about a lot of this stuff on X, and he's got podcasts. He's kind of out there. And so Omachi is a Linux distribution, so similar to Windows, Mac OS, that in the latest version, I think it's 4, has been kind of developed, quote unquote, from the ground up to be like AI first. And a lot of people have a lot of opinions in tech world. I don't give a shit. Don't even comment. I don't care. And when it comes to the execution of what he's doing and like the claims and, there's too many fucking opinions. What I want to get to is the core of the idea, right? And so he was talking. So I'm through, I don't know, a couple hours of the Lex podcast. I don't know if I can recommend it. It's long, but there's definitely a couple points in there that were made that I thought were really fascinating, because I've been talking about some of these on the podcast, and I've had some personal experiences lately with folks that I totally resonate. And so one of the comments that was made in the podcast was something along the lines of, like, the way that we've structured software companies to date is kind of incompatible with building with AI, because the AI models and capabilities and tools and everything associated has moved so far in the last 6-ish months that a lot of those systems and formalities don't need to exist and actually slow you down or prohibit you from adopting the tools. And what I don't want to like get into is this like magic AI idea that a lot of people have too. But I think a lot of people are struggling with this. And I guess for me, I was just really validated, because this is the life I've been living for like the last 6 months. And he was kind of talking about how he's building Omachi with it, and like got to the point now where he's, you know, just, I don't know, in the slipstream flow moment with AI or whatever.
Sure.
And what I want to do is try to deconstruct that a little bit, because we were talking a little bit before we started. And I think like some of the key points are better to focus on than like, can you get there? Cause like, I still have like really good friends that are like way smarter than they are like letting themselves be. And they're just like AI doomers. And I'm just like, it works for coding. I don't know what to tell you. Like I do this every day. Mm-hmm. It works. One of the points on that was David has maintained open source software for a long time, and human AI code slop is just as prevalent as AI code slop, right? There's a lot of shitty programmers. There's a lot of shitty code. There's a lot of people who have opinions about code where maybe your code isn't shitty, but someone thinks it's shitty. So I thought that was kind of an interesting point that I haven't really like definitively made. And I think it's good to kind of discuss, is it's like, I think because AI is billed as this magic, like get it all done the right way the first time, we've talked about this, like the trolley problem. There's just a higher bar for like AI code than there probably should be. And there's been a lot of like just false things built up around it that people are polluting their minds with, that are not allowing them to experiment. And I'm trying to get people like unblocked from that.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a topic that I think is also being discussed outside of the software realm, where if you're using AI to write or to modify or to even proofread and tweak your own words, then instantly people seem to reject the idea behind it, right? So the fact that one uses AI to write, say, like a blog post or something, a lot of people instantly just jump on the, oh, you used AI to do this, it's crap kind of thing. And I think that's kind of the thread line here, as well as with coding. It's a little bit different in the sense that, you know, code can be evaluated, but it's certainly creeping into the software world where we'll look at it, oh, it's written by AI, we're not going to accept it, or it's going to be junk, right? But again, on the flip side, if you worked in engineering or if you worked in computer science, there are plenty of coders who just aren't good, or there's an oversight, or you do something in that context, it looks like a poor coder, but just in that specific code snippet, it's done wrong or done poorly, right? So this idea of being able to abstract, again, where the information comes from versus the credibility of the information you're presented, is, I just feel like something that humans have always struggled with.
Right.
Like if you were to hear an opinion from a 16-year-old kid and you hear the exact same opinion from a peer, you're going to probably value the opinion from your peer more than the 16-year-old kid, just for whatever ageist reasons you have, right? So it's certainly something that I think is not easy to get away from, this association of use AI to do this and therefore it's bad. But I don't know how to explain it to people to try and be able to dissociate the fact that AI was used from the quality of the work that was produced, or whatever you want to call it.
And I think people reject like the blog posts or emails because like AI tends to be more wordy than
Fluffy.
it needs to be.
Yeah. Flourishy for sure. Yeah.
And if you're a knowledge expert or really have deep knowledge in something, it tends to not make points in the right way, I guess, or ways that you would expect. And then I think people think their time is wasted. And then there's a lot of people who use it because they don't want to talk to their coworkers, which is a whole problem in itself. That's a cultural problem, folks. But yeah, I think like you have to remove that. Another point that was made that I think I agree with too is that like modern corporations, like you mentioned Microsoft, I'm not going to pick on Microsoft, but the way that you need to build with like agentic systems is different. And like how this has developed over the last 18 or so months. I mean, AI has been around forever, right? Since the dawn of computer stuff. And even probably before that, like we've had kind of like artificial
it was like
traditional
AI versus what everyone's calling AI now, which is the generative AI stuff.
But generative AI, LLMs, transformers have, they started out and they would be able to kind of give you some information. The chat prompt everybody was kind of familiar with. You could go and chat with AI and it kind of gives you stuff. For coding, it became kind of like AI autocomplete on steroids. So like your companion copilot-y kind of thing. We moved at some point into more kind of like chat prompt coding, I would say, where you just kind of like, you kind of co-design or co-code with you. And now we're really into like agentic coding and just agentic execution in general. And a lot of people, I don't think get that. Like, I don't think they know what that means. I think it's a buzzword that I hear a lot and everyone's like, yeah, I want that. I'm like, great. Why? I want agentic systems. Right. Why? And I mean, it still comes back to like, what are you trying to accomplish in our agentic systems? The best way to do that, it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. But I think the parallel and the point I really want to drive in is that I think a lot of people are getting tripped up. And one of the skill sets that folks need to adapt to work in an agentic world is the ability to manage. And so a lot of like engineers, I know, they're really proficient in code and they write the code and they collaborate with folks, but like they're the kind of master of the universe. That's a very different skill set, individual contributor, than being able to manage an autonomous agent or agents. It only just gets more complicated the more agents you get in there, just like it is with people. If you've ever managed people, you usually start with one or maybe two people. It's usually pretty chill. If you've ever progressed in that scale, it gets generally exponentially harder. And you have to really evolve and change your approach on how you manage larger and larger groups of people. It also depends on like what you're doing. Are they junior people? Are they senior people? Are they, but so many people are bad at that. There's
it's not just bad, but also it's not their fault. It's not what they want to do either, right? So
So the problem I think with agentic coding becomes you either want to be the IC and do all the work and this thing gets in your way, kind of like what I was describing earlier with this project where it was just like easier and better for me to do it. But I think a lot of people get hung up on that and then don't ever get fully pushed into the AI agent coding because they just want to do it themselves. And it takes a lot of trial and error, right? You're like, hey, I could have written this thing and it would have been better and it would have worked and it would have taken less time. But you're prohibiting yourself from learning how to use the tool.
Yeah, I think that's one of the arguments for a lot of people who may not necessarily be like the AI rejectionists, but those who actually enjoy the work that they do. And a lot of coders end up falling in this camp where they actually enjoy the process of coding. But if you have an AI agent that does it for you, it kind of goes back to like the whole purpose thing. Is like, why was I doing this in the first place? So like there's that bucket of people, which I understand that they sort of see what it could turn into. Whereas you have other people who just don't, they don't see the switch between something like IC, individual contributor, towards having more of a managerial or overseer perspective, effectively trying to abstract from the low level work. But I do feel like there is like an advantage when you do come from the low level work to really understand what it means to manage. Otherwise, you're telling an agent to do something and you have no idea how to verify the work that it's doing. Well, same as people.
The best managers are the people who come through the ranks of knowing the thing that they're managing or knowing the the technology or whatever you want to call it. But I think
Yeah.
right now, for people to be very successful with agentic coding or just agentic systems, I guess, the big thing though is you have to be able to manage, you have to be able to clearly articulate outcome, and then you have to know when you need to zoom in to the IC role and intervene or complete or reframe. And so it's a kind of macro manage of like, I'm a director or a VP and I'm kind of giving a broad vision and I'm expecting you to figure out how to do it, to like a director who's kind of like trying to translate that and kind of measure the productivity. Like, how do we actually know we've achieved the outcome? What is the outcome? Is it clear? To more of that like frontline manager who's like, hey, Andrew, you had noticed you haven't been at your desk and that matters to us for some reason. And
Yeah.
not, what's your progress against the outcome? But you have to kind of micromanage sometimes too. And I think for a lot of people, micromanagement is uncomfortable. And you really shouldn't have to micromanage most like professionals or like adults, frankly, but that's a whole conversation. But it's, I think the people who are really struggling right now are the folks who have a hard time with either kind of one of those three levels of skill, or just like you said, don't want to do it. And that's cool. If you want to code,
Yeah.
great. Like, frankly, you're probably not going to have a job because, like Jensen Huang has said, I think he's got the most perfect take on AI. Like, AI isn't going to take your job. Someone with AI is going to take your job. And it's equivalent to saying, like, I need to read all my reports on paper and they need to be typed when this magical computer thing was invented. And I can just do it
Right.
digitally now. Or I
Yeah.
need
Yeah.
my secretary to dictate for me because I refuse to
Right.
learn how to keyboard, right? It's these same kind of problems. It's just in a different, kind of age, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, there are 2 points that I wanted to really highlight because I think you nailed it. That I want to make sure people kind of listen to. The one piece was like knowing when to go micro, right? Like you can hit a lot of scale by spinning up agents and having them do work for you, but that's one of the elements that I see a lot of people sort of missing, is not realizing when they should actually go and dig deeper into taking control and go apart. So if you're delegating all your work to these agents and you're not actually verifying, or you have no idea how to verify, then you're not going to get the outcomes that you really want, right? So being able to
Exactly.
have that human judgment into looking at like, okay, well, this agent returned this. How do I know whether it was what I needed or not? And then being able to either spin off into your own spike to understand what the agent was doing,
Yeah.
or redirecting it and just saying, no, this is how it should have been done. And then sort of going down that path too, right? That does sort of tangentially to this concern I've had in the back of my head. I do kind of worry how, as people adopt AI and work with it more, it affects the way we manage in general, because we're getting very, very much trained to focus solely on outcomes. So when you're working with an AI agent, you drop all the kindness and you say, hey, do this. I need you to do it this way. Go and do
It's
it. As
prescriptive.
opposed to, right, exactly. So there's a little bit of like as you get more comfortable doing that over and over again, you sort of lose this social touch that you would need for working with other people.
Yeah, I think it's going to change dynamics. I think part of the other problem is like within a typical baked organization, the way that work is decided, prioritized, etc., is just completely wrong for AI. That the people building with AI need to have the judgment, the taste, the talent, the knowledge to make the thing happen. And if anything, that executive job is even harder now because you have to have a vision that is reachable but stretchable, because your vision that you think is 18 months could take 10 minutes, depending on what you're doing. And that's hard, right? And I think like how you manage in that environment just in general is a lot more, like I've said before in the podcast, like it's guardrails. It's like, how do we know that we're doing the wrong thing? How do we know that we've like scope creeped or veered off in the wrong direction? And then giving the people doing the work like total freedom to just like get it done and come up like in a typical product management process. You have a design phase, you have the engineers go implement it, you run into bugs, you figure it out, the product managers in a million different directions. I think you still need that sometimes, but I think the world that people are trying to live in, and where a lot of the friction is coming from is like that has to collapse down to like nothing. And that
Yeah.
you have to be very clear on, I guess, feature definition or scope of, this is what the thing is we're doing. This is where it goes. And then it's not that you just don't do the thing that you hit the guardrail on. The guardrail is then your signal to say, okay, we got to bring the team together. Like, is this the direction we want to go? Does it make sense? Get the people's perspective and then go down that direction. And I think like engineering is now more important because you have to have that judgment and taste. Whereas before you could kind of defer to a designer or defer to a product person or another team or like a tech lead. Like now everyone I think kind of has to be a tech lead and like a high performing agentic team.
Yeah.
And like, you could be a high school graduate and have a mastery of that skill. Like this isn't like it's all old people only, right? It's just like the level of knowledge or the ability to understand quickly and learn is now hard mode, I guess. Like, I don't know what else to say. And it really changes, and I think a lot of people are having, I talk to people all the time, like I'm just like, what are you trying to build? Like, how do you know, if you don't have the basics of knowing what you're trying to do at your company, like how you make money, what is the software that actually makes money, or what's the technology that makes money, or what's your market? And like, if your team has like, oh, I just, I'm on XYZ team and we do this thing. Okay, well, how does that contribute to the business? If you don't know that, you've done it wrong. You got to start there. You got to build that culture from scratch, because you can't, adding AI to it is just going to make it more complex and probably worse, because now you're just moving faster in the wrong directions and it just explodes. And I think like we saw that at Meta. And now a lot of people latch onto that and say, well, see, it doesn't work. And it's like, well, no, we're learning how to adopt humans and AI technology and managerial structures and learn from that.
Right. This reminds me a lot of like concepts in innovation like this. I always go back to this idea of base layering, where like things that move fast, they iterate, and that's what gets you like the learning. But on the surface, like if you imagine the core and then something spinning really fast, the things up top move slower, right? So the culture is sort of that slow piece that's moving. I think the friction between the adoption of AI towards how it actually reverberates throughout the rest of the world is kind of where the phase that we're in right now. And people don't seem to see the connection between the speed at which AI is changing versus how the world works.
Well, and I think too, like, so we're already at like a couple levels of abstraction. To be proficient with like AI coding tools, you also have to be like a master of like multitasking. And I think the evolution of people is like, I know, right? That you kind of are using the chat or whatever, you're using cursor and autocomplete, and then you kind of get into an agent. You're like, oh, I can like give the agent a task and it'll go do it and I'll manage all the tasks. Okay, you're at like level 1. But making the jump from level 1 to level 2 is like the hard part when you start firing up more agents, because now you're I'm trying to think like how to like make this easy to understand. So you just have more task doers, and it's kind of the linear scaling problem. Like it's a people team, like, oh, we need another engineer. We got to hire another engineer. Now you're managing 4 people. Oh my God, it's 20% more hard. And I think that's a natural evolution. I think that's where a lot of people are stuck right now too, is like the task manager, and you have to kind of keep bouncing back and forth. I think that'll change. I haven't found a great solution to that. We're not there yet. I think it gets even harder on like level 3 of like when agents start to manage agents, and you get, I don't know, there's all sorts of names for this shit, but it's like, you have like swarms or whatever. And now you're in true agentic development, because you have a lot of shit going on that you don't have any visibility into really. Right. And I would say again, that comes being, how do you know it's done? How do you know it's correct? What are your test cases? What is the outcome? How do we know? Because if you don't know what the outcome is, AI ain't going to figure it out either, as we were talking about earlier with what I'm doing. It's like, and you can make AI do those kinds of things when you're really in a true novel environment or pursuing novel knowledge. It's doable, but it's like, it's, I don't know if it's, I understand why like a lot of PhD friends I have are not super AI friendly, because like, nobody else in the world knows what's in your brain either.
What you know. Exactly.
Right.
Right.
And like, if you work in a lab, you have to work with other people, and it's AI is the same way. And I understand you don't want to sit there and have to prompt it, but it's like, you're never going to learn what those lines are or how to push those lines. And not everyone I know, is that way, but a lot of people are that way. And so, yeah, so you have to be able to multitask. You have to be able to know, I have a side project I'm working on, and I hopefully will work, and then I will talk about, or maybe I'll talk about it either way. But I've kind of come up with a new way to do agentic management, and we'll see. TBD.
Okay.
Success or not.
I mean, even if it's not a success, it'd be interesting to hear like why it didn't work or why you think it didn't work, right? So
Yeah.
a lot of stuff that we talk about is these ideas of how you actually do these types of things, and they're not all easily translatable into have an agent do something, but it would be, I'd be curious at the very least to see what your learnings are.
Yeah, I mean, I can just like, the problem I'm trying to solve right now is at any given moment, I have up to 10 primary agents, let's call it, where I'm like actively working with them. And then at any given time, there could be several hundred to maybe thousands of agents doing stuff. And so it's, how do
thousands
you
of
manage
agents?
that?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, how do you manage that? And there's different levels of what's going on. And so like some of the agents are doing work. Some of the agents are validating work. Some are critiquing. Some are, they have different roles or tasks or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
That they're doing. And so it's not like managing thousands of people per se, although it's kind of a similar idea of like, how do you manage a massive org? But it's also like, how do you manage a massive org when you're like the vice president, and then some person comes to you that's like 4 levels down, and you have really no idea what they do, and they're like, I have this really critical problem that you need to fix immediately.
Right. Yeah.
But then it's also like, for me, it's also like, how do you keep track of progress on stuff? And so like, I guess I have up to 10 primary agents across, at any given time, I'm probably working on 3 to 5 projects, 1 to 5 projects, just depending on what I'm doing. Background, I'll be kind of swinging back and forth. This is going to go away at some point. It's just, that's where we're at now.
Yeah.
The tools just aren't, which is why I'm trying to develop the tool to make it better. But so then on top of that, it's, here's the outcomes I want, stuff happens, or you learn. Now what? How do I know where we're at? How do I know, as you kind of learn about what you're doing, you get kind of branch decisioning, right? Of like, oh, we could go this way, we could go that way. There's this option, this decision. How do you track those decisions? So I think a lot of people in like deep agentic systems are having these same problems. I think a lot of people think they're doing agentic systems, have no idea what I'm talking about. And like, folks, it gets harder. And so, I mean, that's what I'm really actually kind of interested in right now too, is like really cracking that, because it's like, I've hit my human throughput limit of like, I kind of have I can only do so much at any given, even multitask. I'm a native multitasker. I know, like solo focus, blah, blah, blah. We've talked about it all the time on the podcast. But working with agentic systems, you have to be able to like keep shit moving kind of unexpectedly. And that's a lot of interruption, which isn't great. So I'm trying to figure out like, how can I go back to focusing on, or I hit a hard problem and like, oh shit, now I need to like use my human brain to figure out something.
Oh no, I have to use my human brain.
Yes. Well, but also in like my, I've been on this journey now for what, I don't know, 12 months or more. It's finally gotten so good, so fast, that I'm able to now extend so much further into problem spaces that I'm hitting the edges of technology, right? It's like, these are the hard problems that I'm trying to deal with in whatever, kind of vertical I'm working in. Now I have to use my human brain, because AI doesn't do very well at that. It can help,
right.
Ideas and kind of like what we talked about earlier, but I'm not hitting very many problems where it's like, it's just totally and completely like me sitting in a whiteboard for hours on end, but like the one project is there, but the rest of it's not. So
okay. Yeah.
We'll see. I have a really interesting design that I'm going to probably implement this weekend, and we'll see if it works or not.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, we can share notes because I also have my own personal system that I go through trying to manage these as well. So we can share notes. And I have not gotten to the point where I've wanted to sort of come up with the solution, so to speak, because one works and it's me. But I don't want to build a solution that displaces me out of the loop. Right. So
well, no, and I think everybody is in this kind of like everybody's kind of building their own solutions, and maybe that's the solution. And so I think it's beneficial to talk about it, but I don't know that there's a universal solution. I just think that it's the same age old problem of like, how do you manage work? And with AI, it's just at a scale that is so astronomically more. You can hold it back, like a lot of people will do at a corporation. Like, I don't understand the idea, so I'm going to shut it down. Or you can now explore that idea in ways that you could never conceive of, probably faster than you could conceive of. And if you want to actually innovate or you want to actually stay ahead of the AI curve, you need to figure out how to work in those systems at scale. So it's how do you scale the workers, the agents or whatever, but then how do you scale that output? And then how do you scale, like, is it working? How do you scale the value? How do you scale the business? Like, and now you have, dozens of teams doing that. How does that look? And it's like, we're there. This isn't some hypothetical, like we are there. If you're not there yet, you might be, or you might not be, but your competitor probably will be.
Yeah, I mean, it goes into some philosophy that we can definitely go down, but this idea of, in software, you have this backlog, you have technical debt. And as a tech lead, you make decisions, whether you just accumulate that debt or just don't focus on things right now. But with the power of AI, all that kind of goes out the window, right? And I feel like we're in this age where a lot of people, basically your backlog is what you choose it to be, right? So you can specify how big you want that to be. And if you have the power of AI, maybe you make that super long and then you'll never get done. You'll just turn through everything you want all at once, or you can make it small and targeted.
Yeah, and it's an epistemology, like why backlog? And I guess for people who, aren't in software, but I would always joke with my teams that the backlog is where shit goes to die.
Yeah. It's camp out the back, right?
It's a living graveyard.
Leave it there and you forget about it. Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I would oftentimes come up with what I call like rainy day bucket of stuff that like seems plausible that we should work on, that if we had time or whatever, people are bored. But why backlog? Because focusing the humans and focusing the team is critical to make sure that you're using resources correctly and driving business value and all this tech shit that people may or may not know.
Yeah.
But with AI, you still have a resource utilization problem of tokens, I guess you could say.
Yep.
Or money. I guess money equals tokens.
Yeah.
Or budgets, is kind of maybe a way to think about it. And that can be a constraint still, but it's much less of a constraint. And I find like a lot of the stuff that as a product person, I would have said in the past, like pass or like cool idea, this could totally be valuable. It's just not valuable enough, or not probably there's all this other stuff that's more valuable that we should do. Now I'm kind of like, throw an AI agent on it for 10 minutes and see what happens, or like go investigate this and build a plan and let's, see what you come up with kind of idea. But it's still it's a human cognition limit of like how much of that you can manage. And so I'm trying to figure out, I figured out a way to make it cope. Now I'm trying to figure out how do I scale that. To your point, it's like I could double me. I guess I could hire more people, right? But it's also like, that's the next problem I see with agentic programming or agentic anything, is like you hit a human cognition level very quickly. And I think the people who are really on the bleeding edge of this, like we're mutants and we have the capacity to like shift focus a lot and like have, high focus powers or something. I don't know. Because like I talk to people about what I'm working on and they're like, how are you doing all this? And I'm like, I don't work that hard. Like I've definitely worked harder in my life for like less outcome or output than I am now. Right.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So I mean, working with agents, working with AI is a little different, and we're sort of in the growing pains of doing that.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to hear.
Yeah, and if you're on the
you
bleeding
would come up
edge,
with.
like this is the problem set. Like it's not adopting AI, it's not even adopting agents. It's like how do you scale the agents or the management of that process? And I think a lot of people slip into the old system of we're going to have a backlog grooming session. It's like, well, why?
Hmm.
Or I'm going to ask AI to prioritize for me and just throw out all my judgment. It's like, okay, well, we don't need you here anymore if you're not providing
Right, if
any
you can do
judgment
that,
value.
right. And that's what I was interested in, what your solution would look like, because there have been models of this before, and it takes the form of an inbox, right? This is always this is the age-old solution: is you need the decision, just tell me what I need to know, and then it's in my inbox, and I'll send it to your outbox, and then let
But
it
I think
go.
it's two problems, right? So it's decisioning, which I think eventually does collapse because there's just so many emails you can read in a day, right? There's no way to scale that. I think you could probably do better, and you could implement agents and ways to scale that, but I think it's diminishing returns. But it's also managing the output and tracking the output and knowing where you are and how divergent the curve is or not either. It's the age-old management problem. But then I hear people screaming like, backlog grooming sessions or some 3-letter, 4-letter acronym where we're going to have a giant spreadsheet where we're going to make up values and justify our worth. And then it becomes a like political relationship.
Not all the time, but yeah, I see. Yeah.
Versus
I see where you're leading.
Right. But it's a totally irrelevant process in 2026 with AI. Like, yeah, there's, time, money, energy. It's all not unlimited, but like, I think you can get so much further past problems and you can stop experiments much quicker than you ever would. And so it's a very different conversation of more of like, do we keep going down this line or do we try some other experiments? And again, it's back to that like vision versus execution versus doing. And it's like, well, we're still going to climb the mountain, but we're not, maybe instead of continuing up this mountain, we're going to go to that mountain. And there's an opportunity context that used to be you had to get all your gear. And now with like AI, I guess you just like magically appear on the other mountain and start going. But if you keep doing that, you don't ever climb it. And if your goal or your outcome of the company is to summit the mountain and you're constantly shifting focus, you never do that. And then someone else will come along and do that. And the difference between now and in the past is that in the past, you used to have hundreds of people and billions of dollars to like compete with companies. And now it's like a couple people with AI can like outcompete your company and outcompete your product. And then they compete on price. And you can't absorb that, right? And so this is where the doomerism people get into, but we're kind of there. We're not there at scale. And so it's like, if you can solve the problems of using the technology, then you're fine. Or if you're making progress in solving the problems. But if you just like throw it out the window and say, it's too hard, or you throw it out the window, it doesn't work. Well, good luck.
Yeah, it's very much whether you're wrong, whether you think you are right or wrong, you're still wrong. It's a lot about the mindset.
Yeah. Let's wrap.
All right. Yeah, we'll bookmark the conversations around what you end up learning from your experimentation, and
I don't know if I don't know if I'll have it done or not. Like I said, I'm out this weekend, but we'll see.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you mentioned you're out of town this weekend, and you said you're put together.
I do this all the time. And it's so funny because like, how am I so productive? Well, Claude doesn't care if I'm at my keyboard.
Yeah, right, exactly. You set it up as a remote session, and you go out of town, and you just
the AI doesn't care, and if you're clever enough, you can make it work, and I don't have to sit there with it. So, all right,
yeah,
happy Thursday.
Awesome.